Hello, how's everyone doing today? On behalf of Calvin University and Safe and Just Michigan, thank you for joining us today. My name is Nick Nichols. I work for Calvin University in the Calvin Prison Initiative. The Calvin Prison Initiative is a liberal arts post-secondary education program. So basically, we offer educational opportunities to the incarcerated. And in an environment like that, something that we have learned, even though that we work for a university, we learn that it's not necessarily about the education. The education is just a vehicle for transformation, for personal growth, and a place to encounter people. And with that encounter, we see incredible stories of change, we see progress, development, and then also sometimes we see opportunities to have a conversation. We encounter things that make us pause and say, maybe we should have a conversation about that. And I think that the area of sentencing juveniles to life without the possibility of parole, I think that's one area where we as a society need to at least have the conversation. Sometimes there's people that's what they do for a living, is help society have that conversation. And with that in mind, I would like to introduce Cassie from Safe and Just Michigan to help us have those kind of conversations and to encounter the humanity of the incarcerated.
Nick, thank you so much for the warm welcome. We are so happy to be here. My name is Cassie Lawyer, and I am the research specialist for Safe and Just Michigan, and we have a wonderful evening planned for you. We were going to be spending some time talking about recidivism amongst former juvenile lifers, but the majority of the program is hearing from former juvenile lifers themselves. They have so much to tell us about growth, change, and redemption. An overwhelming majority of former juvenile lifers leave prison and go on to be positive influences in their communities. And if you talk with them, you'll find out that they were positive influences on the inside. What they're doing on the outside is just an extension of who they became on the inside. After that, we're going to have some videos, a panel discussion, and a question and answer period. Next slide. I want to acknowledge and thank Deb LaBella and her staff for the information that I'm going to be presenting tonight. Deb is a star civil rights advocate challenging the inhumane conditions of confinement. Her office maintains a surveillance system of children who were sentenced to life without parole, and if the state has complied with resentencing them. When we talk about juvenile lifers, they both sort of reference a person, and these are individuals who were convicted as children and sentenced to life without parole. Collectively, when we talk about juvenile lifers, we're mainly talking about all of those children who were caught up in the tough on crime era. Tough on crime was tough for adults, but it also was tough on a lot of children. These are children who were sentenced from the late 70s to the early 2000s to life without parole. back then, children were treated when they were in the criminal legal system almost like little adults, in that they had the same decision-making capacity, the same capacity, social emotional regulation as adults. And because of that, it seemed absolutely normal to send them to give them a life without parole sentence, which basically winds up to being a slow death sentence for them. Given what we know now about child development, about child psychology, about neurodevelopment, we were wrong. Children are not little adults, and the developmental process extends for longer than we initially thought. Still, Michigan law still permits the sentencing of children to life without parole. At the time of the Supreme Court ruling of Miller versus Alabama in 2012, there were 366 juvenile lifers in Michigan prisons. Almost half were 16 years old or younger. 3/4 were black and brown children. 71% were black children. And although many juvenile lifers are from Southeast Michigan, this was a statewide issue. Among those 366 individuals, 61 came from West Michigan counties. Next slide. Now, there were 366 juvenile lifers. They spent a long time in prison. Among 80% of them served at least 20 years. "344 were resentenced to either a term of years or life without parole. But there's still 22, 12 years after the Miller versus Alabama ruling, who have yet to be resentenced. And among those who were resentenced, 3 passed away before they could be released from prison. "194 have been released and are out in the community, while 147 are still in prison. And they're in prison because they either have not completed their minimum term of years, they were resentenced and have not completed the term of years, or they were resentenced to life without parole, which is still an option. A person, once they've been convicted of a crime, punished, and released, 2 things can happen. They can relapse back into criminal activity, or they could not. When somebody relapses back into criminal activity, we call that recidivism. And recidivism is an important concept in criminology, is often cited as a measure. They almost kind of use it as a way sometimes of evaluating, how effective the correction system is. The definition I gave you is clear and concise. However, in order for it to be something that's measurable, we need some additional information. Because when we say somebody is relapsed back into criminal activity, what do we mean by that? Is that an arrest? If they're on parole, is that a technical violation? Or is that a new charge? Different jurisdictions have answered that question differently, and it kind of makes it difficult sometimes comparing apples to apples, because when we do, look at recidivism across jurisdictions, first thing we have to ask is, are we talking about the same thing? Another thing that can change is the follow-up period. How long are we going to look to see if somebody recidivates? 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, for the rest of their lives? One of the things that the state has to contend, and different jurisdictions have to contend with, is, do we really want to follow somebody for the rest of their lives? So, when we talk about recidivism, always like the first question that folks need to ask is, are we talking about the same thing? Now, the Michigan Department of Corrections has its own definition of what recidivism is. And for them, recidivism is if somebody who was released from prison and is convicted of has a new charge, convicted of a new crime, within 3 years of their release from prison. Clear cut. That's what they're looking at. And for some of the statistics that I'm going to be showing you, we're going to use that definition too, because we want to compare apples to apples. Here is an overall graph of recidivism from the Michigan Department of Corrections. Now, this is overall recidivism. And for them, they basically, their best numbers is, 20.1. This past cohort, the latest number is 22.7% of individuals who are released from prison in Michigan wind up back on a new charge within 3 years. But that's everybody, juvenile lifers and everybody else. One of the great things about having data from Deb LaBelle and her surveillance system is that we could tease out and look at juvenile lifers by themselves. And that's what we're going to do in the next slide. So, and we're going to walk through sort of where the numbers, how the numbers are generated. So we're going to start off with our 366 juvenile lifers who were eligible for parole after Miller. 344 were resentenced, 194 were released. Now, since the MDOC definition only looks back 3 years, when we look at that 193, we have to figure out how long have folks been out. And what we find is that 136 have been released for longer than 3 years. And so we can't include them in the calculation at all. Because according to MDOC's definition, their look-back period is only 3 years. If you were out longer than 3 years, you are not considered recidivist. So, how many people are we including? Total, only 53. 53 is within that 3-year look-back period, and when we look at that 53 to see what happened, we find that 57 have not caught a new charge. Only one person has. So, to calculate recidivism, we just take that 1 over that 57, and we come out with 1.7. Now, if you think back to MDOC statistic, basically they have, 1 out of 1 out of 5 people who come out go back into prison. We have a fraction of that much. It's 1 out of 50. And that's a story that needs to be told, and told more often. Former juvenile lifers are not the risk to public safety that folks think that they are, or that the media would tell you that they are. They're just not. And the data proves that. So you might ask me, okay, that's MDOC's definition. What if we look over lifetime? No time limit. What does recidivism look like then? Let's do this again. We've got our 366 who were eligible, 344 who were resentenced, 194 who have been released. Where did folks land? As of June 2024, the number of people who have desisted is 192. The number of who have relapsed back into criminal activity, caught a new charge, and is back in prison is only 2. When we look at the percentage of that, it comes out to 1. 1%. That is an amazing statistic. It beats MDOC's recidivism statistic by a whole lot, and that's the story that we need to tell. This is the most recent and the most accurate data that we have. And this is, again, something that needs to be told. Former juvenile lifers are not a public safety risk, point blank. And the data proves it. But that's just the numbers. There is so much to the story of former juvenile lifers, and we would like for you to hear them in their own words tonight. Thank you so much. And now to the most important part, hearing from the former juvenile lifers themselves.
I had a real good friend of mine growing up in the elementary school where we used to go and we would catch a spider and then we would look at it and then we would jar it and then find books on spiders and try to find out what kind of spider there was. My name is Jose Burgos and I am a reentry specialist. I was a good kid. I was somebody who was interested in science. Losing my mom at the age of 13, I think really had a really strong impact on me. 7th grade, I ended up dropping out. I started hanging around with kids who I went to school with, who were already involved in the gang life. What I ended up losing at home with my mother was actually something that I was looking for on the streets. Gangs provided me a false sense of family. I always felt that like I didn't belong there. I was 16 years old when the crime was committed. I still don't think that at the time I really realized the seriousness. It wasn't, I think, until I got like a little bit older that I really understood. It really bothered me. It really bothered me because I would think about the mother. I would always think about the mother having 2 twin sons. And every time that she was taking care of her son, the one that survived, she was always reminded of the son that she lost. So that's always something that that I've carried. It never goes away. You know what I'm saying? It never goes away. It's something that, for me, I think is something that drives me in the work that I do today. because I wanted something good to come out of such a bad situation. You know, having that type of attitude is actually is one of the things that made me survive. 27 years of incarceration. So I always wanted to keep my mind healthy, and keeping my mind healthy was always at least having some type of hope. I was released in October of 2018. When I got out, I got involved with ICANN, the Incarcerated Children's Advocacy Network. It's an organization made up of juvenile lifers. We advocate to abolish life without parole for children. Who better to deliver that message to legislators than those who actually went through it? I think if anybody deserves a second chance in this country, it's the children. At the State Appellate Defender's Office, I ended up getting a job as a reentry specialist. And so I work with clients who are in the process of being released, in the process of seeing the parole board. If they need resources, even though we're not a direct resource, I connect the dots. If they need some help and they need something, I don't know where I'm gonna find it, but I'm gonna find it for them. Out of all these years of incarceration, the one real good thing came out of it, that I discovered the purpose that I didn't even know was even there. Wanting to make something good come out of that situation is actually happening as we speak. Children deserve a second chance, and if given that opportunity, they can come out here and become very productive in society.
I was born in Nashville, Tennessee in the year 1962. My family lived in this little city called Lebanon, Tennessee. A fun-loving kid, but I think that I had a lot of issues of insecurities, of not being good enough. The only reason I was born in Nashville because there was complications and the hospital did not admit Black people, so we had to go to the Black medical institution in Nashville. I was raised primarily by my mother, hard-working woman, Christian woman who was devoted to her kids. She didn't have much education, and that meant that she didn't get great jobs back then. I'm the youngest of four. She always found a way to support us. The best part of school for me was when I was able to participate in sports. I was a totally different person when, like, the coach would say, hey, we need you to do this, to do that. I needed that structure in my life. I needed that type of attention, that type of monitoring. But without it, I was totally lost. I was always with the group of kids who like to get into trouble, like to have excitement, like to always have something going on. Whatever adrenaline rush came to us, that's what we did. No thought process, just reaction, just, hey, let's get into this. Hey, what's going on over there? There's a lot of peer pressure to prove your worth. And we thought it was manhood if you accepted those challenges, Hey, I'm no punk, I'll do it, Scared to death, but I'll do it, I was arrested in the 11th grade. This is the first time I ever carried a gun, ever in life, carried a pistol. Now, I did not intend for what happened to happen. I had seen this gun, it was a .22, and I had seen it fired at abandoned cars. The bullet never completely penetrated a window. And when I fired this gun at the window and the gun hit the window, there was a really, really loud explosion. It seemed like a cannon went off. It hit that window and it, like 1,000 pieces of glass just exploded, And I was confused because I'd never seen this happen before. I did not know that the passenger side glass isn't as thick as the windshields. The young lady who was sitting in the passenger seat, bullet hit her and killed her. That wasn't my intentions, I didn't mean for this to happen. Like the emotions and things that go through your mind when you start to realize that you done took a life, even though you didn't intend to take a life, you took it, and it was like, I don't know, it was a really strange, numbing, out-of-body experience, Like, wow, this is what's going on, And it's like, I can't really explain how you feel. I was going through the day and I was like, I wasn't there, man. I just wasn't there. I came home from school, And someone said, hey man, your mother out there, she wants to speak to you. I went out there and she was like, Ronnie, the police called, they said they want to talk to you about a lady that got killed. And she was really crying and everything. So I was, oh mom, they talking to everybody in the neighborhood. That's nothing to worry about. They just want to talk to me because they talking to everybody else. When we went down there, you know, I said, hey, tell us what happened. And I was like, I don't know anything about that. I was over to my girlfriend. So I told them I was over to Felicia's house. That was my story. They say, look, everybody's saying that you didn't really mean to do it, but you need to come clean and tell us what's going on. But I'm thinking, oh, they trying to trick me. I don't know how they know this, you know? And that's how a juvenile think, well, they'll believe me, I guess. Like, come on, man, no one believes you. So I went back to the county jail thinking that, well, I'm gonna get bonded out. And they said, the judge said, no bail. We raised your charge to first-degree murder. And that was it. I knew that I had did something wrong. And I knew that, I thought they were like 5 years or something for what I did, you know? I like, maybe 5 years helped me get myself together, because I'm out of control. When a juvenile gets life without parole, he can't really grasp that sentence. I've only been on this earth 17 years, so life to me was 17 years, you know? We have no idea or no way of grasping what life without parole means. You mean 40 years later, I'm still gonna be in prison? I never even imagined anything like that. It means till you are dead. My remorse is real, it's genuine, you know? Of course, spiritually, I talked to the woman who I killed, and I know she know the truth. She knew that this wasn't an intentional thing that I did. Now, did she forgive me for my actions? I'm not sure, but she knew that I wasn't the cold-blooded murderer that people were calling me. When I went to prison, I didn't feel that this was the place that I was gonna die at, you know? So I was like, what's the best thing to do, man, is try to make myself better. Found out they offered college courses and GED, and I was in those programs almost instantly. I remember the day that I was released. What I remember vividly about that day is the officer up there was giving us clothes to dress out in. They fit horribly, you know, the pants was up here too tight. I can't this shirt like this, you know, way up. And we were complaining. Everybody, hey man, I need some other clothes. I need a 38 and this, that, and that. And the officer come in there, he said, okay, sit over here and we get you guys later once I process these people out. And when he said that, everybody was like, man, these clothes fit fine. Walking out the parking lot instantly, I just seemed to let the penitentiary go, you know? Even though it was minutes ago I was locked down, but I just seemed to transform. A lot of times the things that people said were going to really give me problems and stuff, I haven't had those problems. And I don't know if that's because I always knew that I was better than how I was perceived. And it's also that I had a strong support system in place also. I can't get around that. You know, I've always had extremely strong support. Immediately, I started canvassing for Michigan liberation. I'm knocking doors, you know, trying to talk to people about criminal justice reform and stuff. One of my friends who was familiar with Safe and Just, he said, man, they got a position open for community engagement specialist. And he said, I want you to fill out an application and send it to him. I said, let's do it. And I sent it to him, and fortunately, they hired me. One of the reasons that I'm really enthusiastic about doing this work is because I know that some people come, Ronnie, you're doing a good job, and you know, and pat me on the back, and by no means do I feel exceptional, feel special. I know that there's so many other people who I left behind that are capable or more capable than me than coming out here and doing the same things I've done, and they deserve an opportunity too. So if I could shine light on them and use myself as an example of what you should be doing when you get your second chance, and telling people that I'm not exceptional, there are many others left behind just like me, just need the opportunity that I got. I had to persevere through a lot of really difficult days and difficult situations, but I just had to not give up. And it was really some dark days where, it would be easy to give up, easier to give up. But I just couldn't. I just had to keep getting up and proceeding like I actually had an out date until I got an out date. And to keep planning for the future and to keep hope alive that there was going to be a future for me. The word that defines me, or if just one word, it would be perseverance. It's the ability to just keep on keeping on, the ability to stay focused and to just say, I'm going to grind, I'm going to not give up. So I always had the inspiration and the hope, and to not only me believe, to help others believe that we could get a second chance. I was in the penitentiary, but I never let the penitentiary get into me. I am Ronnie Waters, and I am a believer.
I was 17 years old when all of this happened. They put me in a cell, and I never left that cell. For the next 29 years, I was in a cell. So my fondest childhood memories actually begin with our van. And our van, we called it. So we used to take a lot of trips in it. I had an opportunity to see the Grand Canyon. I got to see the Redwood Forest. I got to see the Petrified Forest. So one of my fondest memories was with it and my family. I began living with my girlfriend, my then girlfriend at the time. I had left my grandmother's house to kind of put it in a nutshell. Didn't like the rules, couldn't stand the rules. And she went and told her parents, hey, look, he needs a place to stay. So they said, look, we'll give you this camper. You can stay in the back of the camper, just don't come in the house while we're gone. So I snuck in every single night. And Steve had also moved into the camper with me. So Steve was 16 and I was 17. And one night her mother came home. She was so mad, kicked me out, kicked Steve out. We're walking around trying to figure out what to do. And he proposed the idea we could get a car. And we started talking about getting a car more and more and more. The more he talked about it, the more I was like, okay, fine, we'll get a car and everything will be all right. Maybe get in a car or hot wiring it or stopping someone and getting their car. It wasn't so bad. We ended up having someone pull over. I got in the back seat, he got in the front. He pulled the pistol from his waistband. Things ended up just going south real quickly. And I remember sinking down into the back seat. I was trying to get away. I was trying to pull myself out of the situation, but it was too late. I was already in it. There was no getting out. My co-defendant, Steve, ended up, taking our victim behind some buildings and shot her twice. I was expecting or hoping or believing, I'm not quite sure which one or all three, that he would just leave them there, but that didn't happen. At the time, I just thought it was unrealistic. You're not gonna kill someone for the car, and that's not who Steve was. We picked my girlfriend up, ended up in a hotel in another state, and I went into the bathroom with her. I had held everything in from that night. And I held it together as long as I could. When we went into the bathroom and sat in the tub, I lost it. I broke down. I'll never forget thinking and telling her it was somebody's mom, somebody's sister who could be dying. That's what, motivated me to talk to her about it. It weighed. It was horrible. She said, we can go, we can call the cops, we'll be okay, and I was more worried about her getting hurt or me getting hurt because, like I said, the guy who was my friend, he just did something I didn't think he could do or would do. And we snuck out and we went across the street to a payphone and we called the cops. They came, they ended up arresting him. They put myself and my girlfriend in the backseat of the squad car. We went down to the station. I'm helping them. They're faxing me maps. I'm trying to communicate with Grand Rapids detectives down in Illinois to help them find this woman, and maybe she'll still be alive. I got in my mind, maybe she's still alive. You know, she's out there suffering. Someone needs to find her. At the end of the night, early in the morning the next day, they put me in a cell. And I was like, why am I in a cell? And I never left that cell. For the next 29 years, I was in a cell. And it took me a lot of years to figure out why I was in a cell. I didn't kill anybody. Why am I being charged with murder? Did I do some bad stuff? Did I aid or abet somebody? Yeah, you know, I'm an aider and abetter, but you don't get charged with murder. No, not in Michigan. Under Michigan law, if you aid and abet somebody in felony murder and you're found guilty, you're going to get the exact same sentence that they have, life without parole. I was, at this point in time, still struggling with the idea that I didn't really understand the concept of life without parole. And so I received my paper, which everybody gets. It's got your out date and everything on it. And I got mine, and mine actually had a date on it, and it said 2023. And I was like, and I looked at it, and I was telling my bunk, I was like, dude, I said, I got an out date, man. I was like, man, they're gonna give me a chance, a shot. And he says, no, stupid. He says, the computer can't figure out life. So they just put, a certain number of years in there, and then they put another certain number of years in after that until you're dead. I really didn't get it. I didn't understand when they told me life without parole, they meant die. They meant you are going to die in prison, and we are not going to give you another chance. When I finally realized the effect my actions had on people and continued to have on people, it was like a slap in the face, and it's something you can't get away from as a grown man. You're stuck with it. You're stuck with the things that you did as that kid. You can never make that right. Prison didn't help. Prison didn't help at all, because I was around men who encouraged stagnation. They encouraged stagnation. They didn't encourage growth, development, maturity, none of that. So I eventually had to come to terms on my own. Things actually, for me, probably began to set in closer to around between 25 and 27. And that's when my brain actually began to really kick in and question the things that I did, and just the remorse. I was introduced to a program that was funded under a grant by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, and it was run by Professor Michael DeWild at Grand Valley State University. The courses themselves opened me up to the idea that I could still be an instrument of positive change. One of the programs I designed was donating to the DeVos Children's Hospital, because it was so dear to my heart. My victim, she was pregnant. That was my first opportunity to try and give back. I contacted DeVos, and she told me what they needed, and we made it happen. We donated $500 worth of games, books, things for the kids. I felt a little less useless. The programs and the education combined kind of helped me not only come to terms with what I was responsible for, but it helped me begin to make amends. Even though I felt like society will probably never forgive me, I felt like it was my journey and my path to begin working towards change. I wasn't quite sure how I was going to get there, but it started giving me a path. A lot of people, they look back on their lives as kids and they think, oh man, I would have gone back and told them, if you do this, this is what's going to happen. That wouldn't have mattered, because I wouldn't have believed you. I wouldn't have believed me, So if I had an opportunity to go back, I probably would have given myself a real man to look up to. I never had that. I never had a dad. My dad wasn't healthy enough to be around for me. My grandfather, he was an alcoholic. So I would have been the role model that I needed to try and show me, not tell me, show me what life's all about, how to navigate, how to make better decisions. I didn't come out as a 47-year-old man. I went in as a 17-year-old and got stuck. And now here I am trying to figure out, how do these men do this? How do they navigate? No one gives you a roadmap. They don't hand you the roadmap when you come out of prison saying, here you go. We know you've been locked up for almost 30 years, so here you go. Here's your roadmap. No, you just come out here and have to figure it out. But one of the things that I advocate for is ending juvenile life without parole. And there's a reason for it. It's one of the only sentences that the United States readily embraces that other countries don't. And Michigan is an outlier. Michigan has sentenced people like me to die in prison. Here I am, out here, like Ronnie, like Jose, like Alex, like Craig, and the list goes on and on and on. We pay our taxes. We're working. We're not out here committing crimes. There's just been this big idea that if you let us out, that we're never gonna change. We're just gonna keep hurting people. Yeah, we've hurt people. We can never change that. We can never go back, ever. But how would you sentence a kid to die? I am Greg Wines. I was released on August 23rd, 2022. I am growth and change. That is what I am.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to have those that are going to be joining me on this panel to come up here at this time, please. Thank you. First and foremost, I want to thank Safe and Just Michigan, Zach, for a wonderful job in putting these videos together. When I watch it, man, I'm gonna try to hold it myself together. I'm gonna try to not get too emotional about it, man, because these videos, they depict real stories, right? They depict men now who recognize the fact that they have caused a lot of damage in society. People who feel a certain way. These videos are not created with the intention of, this is not Hollywood. This is not a movie. This is not entertainment. These are real stories. These are real people with real lives, and most importantly, they're stories that are attached to victims as well. We definitely cannot forget the victims in every case that is mentioned up here, because I think as Ronnie shared, as Greg shared, as I shared, that's the one thing that we have to live with. You know what I'm saying? As children, we have we often hear about veterans who come from war, and the troubles that they have, knowing that even though the things that they did were justified by the rules of war. The fact that you have to take a life that's nothing easy to live with, especially when it's done at the hands of a child. You know what I'm saying? And for me, I know for me that is one of the things that drives me today. You know what I'm saying? Because I know the harm that I cause. It's the type of harm that you can't undo. So the best thing I think I can do is just try to make this world a better place, right? When I was in, let me real quickly. I didn't introduce myself. I'm Jose Burgos. I'm the current the Michigan campaign coordinator for the campaign for the fair sentencing of youth. Previously to this position, I was a reentry specialist at the State Appellate Defender's Office for 4 years, helping those that were in the process of coming home, helping other juvenile lifers who were in the process of coming home, connecting them to the type of services that result into the numbers that you just seen, right? Because there's a lot of juvenile lifers when we came home. Some of us did time together. Some of us didn't know each other, but because we experienced that same thing, because we know what it was to be a child being sent to prison, hope was taken away from us. People said that we would never be no good. We all wanted to make sure that when we came home, whether I knew you or not, if you experienced that same thing I went through, I wanted to help you. I wanted to make sure that you came out here and be successful so that we can prove to the people who once called us super predators and that we were no good and we could never change, we wanted to prove them wrong. So I'm so happy and so honored to be here having this conversation because it is a very important conversation. We're talking about children. You know, I always say, you know, during my time when I was incarcerated, and we'll get the panel started here in a second. During my incarceration, when I first went in, it was just something in my gut that just said, man, there's something wrong with this, right? I knew that I had to be held accountable for my actions, but there was something wrong with sending a child to prison and telling him or her, this is it. This is where you're gonna be at for the rest of your life, right? I was seeing kids that were coming in. As I was getting older, kids were coming in now with these new sentences, and they were getting life sentences. It was just a horrible experience. It was a horrible experience. So with that said, I'm gonna go ahead and go to the panel and get this going. I can go on and on forever about this, man, because I'm very, very passionate about this. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna start off by having the panelists introduce themselves. And just be real briefly, name, how long you've been home, how much you serve. And Ronnie, I know we heard, but you can go ahead and state it again. And then we'll just go down the list. Go ahead.
Yeah, Ronnie Waters. I served over 40 years in prison. I came out in 2020, August of 2020. And so on the 25th of this month will be my 4-year freedom anniversary.
My name is Ross Hayes. I served over 35 years on a life sentence, and as I returned back to Grand Rapids, put myself in position of being somebody that can help the guys that's in prison as well as those that are out. And that's what I'll continue to do the rest of my life, because it's guys that in the system need to see us perform like we was performing in there, doing programs in there as well as we can do out here. And I'm a part of a group called CLEAR, and I sit on the board of Offender Success, and I'm a motivational speaker, and just glad to be a part of this panel. Thank you.
My name is Salo Montalvo. I went in when I was 16. I served 23 years. I've been home a little over 5 years now, and I enjoy being able to help and give back to the community. It's a burden that I carry, and I really appreciate just the openness of the guys, you know, on the video, and really sharing their story and some of the struggles that come with bearing that, and you know, so being able to do that, being able to be here, I appreciate the opportunity. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ahmad Williams. I was 15 years old when I received a life sentence. I served 24 years. I was released October 12th, 2021. Since then, I've been wearing many hats, many jobs. Right now, I'm currently working with the Urban League of West Michigan, working for Cure Violence. And I'm about my youth out here now, you know, so they won't bump their heads like I did and have to go through the experience I went through as a 15-year-old. And, you know, I'm glad to be here, man. I'm glad to be amongst y'all. You know, I know someone who's been with them. Me and Matavo actually got sentenced on the same day. We got resentenced and gave our time back the same day. So, you know, it's a beautiful thing. So, you know, I'm just glad to be here, man. And I thank y'all for being on.
Thank you.
My name is Rich Griffin. I was released from incarceration November of 2017 after serving 23 years in the MDOC, sentenced to two natural life sentences at the age of 16.
Thank you. I want to first say I want to acknowledge the brother Ahmad Williams. Ahmad, when I was working at the State Appellate Defender's Office, he was actually he had came through our Project Reentry. So one of the things that we were doing at Project Reentry there was those who were in the process of getting resentenced and going to the parole board, we would prepare not only prepare reentry plans for them, but also coach them through the process of being able to go see the parole board. And so I was able to work with Ahmad, getting him ready to see the parole board. It makes me, it's like a full circle moment, you know what I'm saying? Because it made me feel so good to know that, here it is, another brother who came home, and he's now out here working, doing violence prevention and working with the youth. I think that's it's very honorable work, and just I couldn't be more proud than my brother, man. So big up to you, brother. Appreciate that. So I'm gonna start off with Ronnie. Ronnie, Ronnie did 40 years, man. Hats off to you, brother. You know what I'm saying? As a child, you went in and did 40 years. 40 years is 40 years. You know what I'm saying? And imagine a child, you know what I'm saying, having to go in and do 40 years, year after year after year. So when you first went into prison, Ronnie, who were you at that time? The child who you were then?
A completely lost individual, just confused. Like, I don't know what's going on, man. I'm only 17 years old. I'm an 18-year-old when I went to prison, and if you only been on earth for 18 years and they tell you that you're doing a life sentence, you think, well, that means 18 years or something, You can't wrap your brain around 40 years. If you try to do 40 years, it's gonna kill you dead. Only thing I knew is I had to just keep waking up and keep waking up and keep waking up and continue to try to make myself better, continue to just don't believe what people are saying about you. Be who you feel you are. And that's the only way that you get through a 40-year sentence. When I look back on all the years that I was incarcerated, I'm just baffled how I got through it, though. It's like I have no clue other than the grace of God that got me through that. Because I've seen people who try, man, I got 40 years, and you just harp on that every day. I got 60 years, I got life, and it would drain you, it would kill you dead. But I never focus on the big picture. I just focus on that day, and that's the only way that you can get through 40 years of incarceration.
You can go ahead and get the mic, because I want to ask that question to you as well, brother. Who were you like when you first went in prison, when you caught your case? Like, if you could define yourself today of who you were at that time, what would you say?
Well, I can't do nothing but tell the truth on this one. I was a joker. I loved to laugh, I loved to play, I loved to play sports. And when that incident happened, I was still the joker. It didn't mean nothing to me. Until I got in that courthouse and they said life sentence at the age of 16 years old. Then I had to start looking at myself being serious. Then when I went into the prison system, a couple of guys saying, man, you young, you gotta be careful. I said, what you mean be careful? I went in the same way I was out on the streets. I was a joker. And I took it serious, even in the system, I was a joker. If you didn't watch yourself and you came at me wrong, I was gonna get you. I went through some hard stuff in there, but after years after years after years, I see everybody getting out that's been done long determined sentence. I said, man, I could change too. So I started trying to get out that cage they had me in Ionia. And they put you in ABE. And when they put me in ABE, it was like in a cage and everybody else was out on this side. And I said, no, I got to come from over here, everybody over there. So I ended up passing the ABE, going to the GED, college. From college, I said, nah, these guys in all these programs. So I started off in the lifers group. Ended up being the vice president. Then I said, okay, it's time to move on. I started counseling guys as I was in there. And I got tired of doing that. So I just started trying to get myself together to get out. And all of a sudden, my victim family member got involved. And once I came out here, the only thing I could say is that it wasn't no looking back, going back into prison. I came out here, I got myself together. I got me together first, before I can get anybody together. Me and my wife, we grew together, been with her 24 years. I got involved with reentry. When reentry was reentry when I first got out in 2009, and then it went to another reentry because the old one didn't work, now the new one worked. And I got associated with them, and I was asked to be a part of the board. I jumped on the board, and I said, man, this is cool. Now I can start helping guys that's in the prison. So, met with McKee, the deputy, well, he was a warden at he was a warden at Bellamy Creek, and from there, he said, yeah, you can go into the prisons. He said, but I don't want you to mess up nothing either. So I said, no problem, you're gonna have it out of me. So I had to prove myself. And when I started going into prison on parole, that wasn't nice for a lot of officers to see a guy coming in that's on parole. And from there, I started going into different other prisons with reentry, clear group, and we was helping the guys inside, so when they come out, Grand Rapids had some place for them to go. And now that I'm out here, still out here, moving around, doing things, and we deal with some of the hardest guys that's coming out of the system. And that's what I'm doing. I'm gonna continue to do that.
That's good. That's good. Thank you for sharing. How about you, Solid? Same question for you.
Yeah, I think going in, I was somebody full of hurt, anger. I had a lot of resentment toward my parents and just abuse, things like that I endured growing up. And I went inside like that as well, and I carried that for a while. And as much as I tried, I think over the years to be better, I think just rooted in that trauma and gained traumas in prison as well, right? I mean, because that, I think for anybody going in at a young age, it's a traumatic event, a significant traumatic event in your life, right? And it bears its mark. And I think that over time, being able to start to work through some of that, and I have to say that I carried more of that coming home as well. I think one thing about trauma is I think it affects you more at the back end of that event than it does during that event. Because now you've got to process, right? You've got to work through all of those things. And so it creates, I think, a very challenging re-entry for a lot of us, right? And so for me, I think being in there, wanting to be better and do better while inside, sometimes I fought against myself. I fought against my dysfunction, right? I fought against so many things, sabotaged myself, right, in different ways. And I think looking back and seeing that now, being able to recognize that and see that. But even in the middle of it, I think still being able to do good, right? And still being able to work on myself and get better. and get rid of the anger, right? Work on those hurts, work on the things that really scarred me. And part of that was trying to help other people, right? Getting involved in different things. And I really have to say that I really have to commend, like you guys, everybody sitting up here, for the work they've done to get to where they are. Because in reality, it took a lot of sheer will and determination, right, to become a different person, right? Because I think that, and I think it's your guys' experience as well, that there was very little rehabilitation. And what you did experience is because you determined that you wanted that. You wanted to be different. You wanted to be somebody else, right, that could help and make a difference in society, right, and a difference even while in there, affecting the people around you. And, you know, I think that's due to a lot of the policies and things like that that we have, you know, that are in the state of Michigan. If you have life, you're going to be perpetually at the bottom of the list for programs and things like that. And so I think that was my experience in wanting to take advantage of as much as I could, because I didn't want to be the same person I was. I was angry, I was cold, and I think in that moment when me and my two friends committed our crime, I was very heartless. And it wasn't until later that, you know, as I began to change and I met, you know, the victim's family, that things started to change for me in a significant way. And I have to say, started to change. It didn't all change like that, you know. So yeah, I think that's my experience.
Thank you, thank you. And for the second time, we're gonna change the question here, but I wanted to come back to something you mentioned about trauma. You know, at the campaign, we had the motto say, "No child is born bad." I mean, we believe that. We believe that no children are not born bad. The vast majority of juvenile lifers experience a lot of trauma when they were growing up. You know what I'm saying? So many different traumas. I mean, then, you know, when you go into prison, that trauma is now compounded with more trauma. You know what I'm saying? And because you're doing a life sentence, there's no way to even deal with that trauma. You know what I'm saying? And so what ends up happening when you first go in there, as a child, you're combative. You're trying to make sense of what's going on here. As a child, you're coming in. We're talking about, like, I mean, literally 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old children who are being placed in the adult criminal justice system, a system that was not created for children. And basically, you're just thrown in there and say, hey, you're doing life without parole, fend for yourself, figure it out. You know what I'm saying? Literally, there's nobody there to say, hey, you know, to walk you through it. You know what I'm saying? And even some of the officers have mentioned, you know, when I was in that, I met a bunch of officers, they didn't like that, you know what I'm saying? Because they weren't trained to deal with children. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of that trauma was still existing. And so that's something that, you know, one of the ways we can stop this, you know what I'm saying, is to deal with a lot of that trauma, you know, when it happens and when they're children, you know? And so, Ahmad, what do you think was the moment? I know personally for me, we all had that moment. We all had that moment where in incarcerated. Like, I looked around one day in a cell, I had a conversation with God and I said, this can't be it for me, right? This can't be it. Like, this can't be you know, how my life ends, right? And so from that moment on, I literally said, you know what, I'm gonna stop making excuses for myself. I'm gonna get this right. Even with a life without parole sentence, I had made a conscious decision that if I was gonna be in here, then I still could find a way to be the best person that I could be. And that is what really, like, just sent me in a whole different direction. So for you, Ahmad, what do you think was the moment in there when you finally said, you know what, man, this ain't me? You know what I'm saying?
My moment came, like, I was 15 when I went in, so I was scared. When I went in because, and Cassie had mentioned earlier about, you know, going inside, us being treated as almost adults, but we were treated as adults, and that's what scared me. Being a 15-year-old kid, being treated as an adult, I wasn't used to. my change, and so, you know, going in there being scared caused me to be rebellious and get into a lot of disciplinary because I wasn't gonna be the pusher, right? So my moment changed probably when I was 30, 15 years later. You know, after the talks was coming around about, oh, juveniles, we may get a second chance now. So when I was about 30, after 15 years of being in there and going through our thing, that's when my change came, and I'm like, man, I have to rehabilitate myself. We wasn't able, you know, as a juvenile lifer, y'all know we wasn't able to get the programs and stuff like you just mentioned. We wasn't able to get programs and stuff. They were for the guys that were on their way home. We were considered, you know, nothing. So we had to do it ourselves, and that's when I'm like, you know, I gotta do this myself. I gotta start educating myself. I gotta start reading more. I gotta start studying more. I gotta start studying law more because I want better. I always spoke like I was coming home soon, even though I had that sentence on me, and that's what helped me out a lot. The communication, the constant communication with my support system, my family, it kept me alive. So I always used to talk to my friends, guys I used to work out with, everything, like I was going home with them one day when I knew in the back of my mind I didn't have that day, though. But that helped me out as well, and once I started, you know, just reprogramming my mind and my thoughts as to I'm getting out and I gotta figure it out myself, then that's when everything started connecting and coming together for me.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, man, because that is what hope looks like, right? That is what hope looks like. When we return hope to somebody who was a child and went in there and was doing all the time, when you return that hope, it's like a light just turns on. It's like, whoa, you know what I'm saying? You start seeing things different. You start processing things different. You start making different decisions. And you start, you know, you really start just evaluating your life. You evaluate, you know, the harm that you cause. How can I repair this? You start repairing relationships, and you know, and you just, I don't know, man. It infuses you, man, with a sense of belonging, and you start, you know, fitting into your own skin. It's like, you know what? I am smart, right? I am smart. I can do better than this, right? Rich, what has been your experience? You know, when you went in there and some of the things that you experienced and when you had your moment and what you know, once you came to that realization, like what was that direction looking like for you?
So I guess that's probably a 2 or 3 part thing. First moment is getting the sentence. The moment that I was sentenced to 2 natural lives at the age of 16 was the moment when I'm like, yeah, no, it's not it right here. I don't think this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. But the other was segregation. An 11-month stint in segregation for an assault on another inmate. You get to spend a lot of intimate time with yourself when you're alone like that. But then the other, to Ahmad's point, the 2012, I'm a Grand Rapids native. I was sentenced out of this county. 2012, my sentencing judge wrote a letter to the parole board mentioning that if my institutional record reflected that I had rehabilitated myself, that he wouldn't have an issue with me being released into the public. At that particular time, Miller v. Alabama wasn't made retroactive yet, but that was the moment when I said, oh, you know, to your point, there is hope I can get out. Because prior to that, like, it's not even a notion of being released. You're just gonna, you know, bite down on the bit and figure out, you know, how to get through to the next day. I heard Ronnie mention that is, you're not doing time tomorrow. Gotta wait till this day finish out before I can think about tomorrow. So the sentence initially, then, you know, segregation, but then in 2012, having that judge send that letter to say, hey, if this guy has behaved accordingly, you can release him. I think at that point, I started to take opportunities more serious that were provided by the department.
Thank you for sharing that. And I want to go back to Ahmad. With the work that you're doing now, Can you give a real brief description of the type, and I think you're working with Rich, the type of work that you guys are doing here in this community in Grand Rapids?
Yeah, this my director right here. This who hired me, you know. He said I want him. But what we do now, you know, we work with the youths, the troubled youths in and out of the juvenile systems like we were. You know, we go to the schools, you know, the kids out in the streets with the wrong crowds. We reaching out, you know, we ain't behind the scenes. We on the front line, you know, we reaching out because again, like, who wants to see our youth going through what we've been doing that, you know what I'm saying? So it's a passion for me that, you know, and I'm glad that, you know, Rich reached out to me once I was released, and because he was waiting on me, you know, he knew that this was the kind of work for me, and like we go to schools, you know, we talk to them, we get them motivated, we create programs, events, you know, when school's out, you know, we have things for them to do to keep them busy. You know what I'm saying? Trades, everything, whatever their dream or their goals are, we pour that into them. You know, that's the work. That's the work I do. That's the work my director here, you know, put me in charge of. So.
And that's what's up, man.
I execute.
Yeah, that's what's up, man. Yeah, yes, please. Thank you. I think it's important, man. It's important, man, to highlight, man, the work that they're doing, man, because here it is. And man, it's weird how this system works, man, because here you have men and women, because there's a lot of women who are doing this type of work as well, who having life sentence, spent decades of time, you know, incarcerated, could have easily just came home and said, you know what, man, I don't want nothing to do with the system. I'm done with it. I'm just gonna go live my life, right? But they felt it upon them to say, you know what, I recognize the fact that I caused a lot of harm. How can I give back, right? In today's, I mean, you know, it's like we failed the children back then, and unfortunately, we are still failing these kids, right? Because these kids are still, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on with the youth, and who better to understand, you know, the things, man, that the youth go through than those who were there. We were kids, right? Ronnie, and so so thanks a lot, man. Kudos to you guys, man, for the work that you're doing. Ronnie, when Ronnie came home, Ronnie, you had I want to go back to a little bit of reentry things. You came home to a good support system, but in the reentry, like, even with your support system, what were some of your struggles during that process, if there were any?
Yeah, first of all, I have to be real transparent with everybody here. I've always had a strong support system, you know, and I know that a lot of people coming home haven't had the opportunities or the support that I've had, and they go through a lot of real stuff, you know, but that hasn't ever been my struggle. That woman sitting right over there, Felicia Tyson Waters, she was with me every step of the way for 40 plus years.
Yes.
That's crazy.
Thank you, sister.
Yeah. My family, you know, I'm probably one of the only people that were in prison that had to turn down money. I got enough money. Do not send me nothing else. You know, people are looking at me and like, man, you completely spoiled, for lack of a better term. But that kind of worked negatively on me because I wanted to prove people that if you step to me, you step to the wrong person. I'm not soft. I will deal with you. And I had that mentality for a number of years when I went to prison. And it was totally just from a place of less than. And I realized that I can't live my life like this. I don't care what nobody thinks of me. If you don't put your hands on me, man, I'm not with that anymore. I'm not trying to prove anything to anybody anymore. And I became my own individual self. You know, in prison, there are a lot of cliques. There's a lot of organizations that you can join, and I don't want to get too deep into it. And they look out for each other. But I never needed any of that. Not because I was a tough guy, but just because I wanted to make my own path. And that's what I did while I was in prison. You hear a lot of struggles about the juvenile lifers or lifers in general, that we're not allowed to be in any programs. What it is, they don't say you can't apply for it, but they put you at the bottom of the list. And people with earlier release dates are always going to jump you. So you rarely, if ever, get into the training, programming, vocational trades that you want to get in. However, that wasn't my problem. I got every vocational trade that the MDOC was offering at the time because I was persistent. I was like, man, I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna find a way to get in this program. I catch the teacher coming down the walkway and I run at him, hey, I need to be in this program. You know, I'm eager. I'll clean up the room afterwards. Whatever it took. And I got in every program that people said that I couldn't get in. And when I'm in it, how did you get in there, Ron? I can't explain it, I just make it happen. And not special at all, just persistence. And that's what got me through the really hard years. And it's so hard at times, man. You go to your cell, man, and you just like, is this ever gonna end? And for a lifer, it's not, until your heart stop beating. So I just wanted to give a shout out to my family and to my support system, but at the same time, I want everybody to understand that what returning citizens go through is real, man. They need support. They need resources. And that's what I'm out here trying to provide for people. I'm trying to provide hope by advocating to get laws and policy change that can transform the Michigan Department of Correction. We left so many beautiful people behind, you know, so many qualified people behind, and we would be remiss if we didn't do everything in our power to help those that we left behind. That's what I'm trying to do. I don't even remember his question, but
oh, you're good. No,
I just wanted to
we're gonna move on. Yeah, we're gonna move on. We have some questions from the audience, but I'm gonna let this brother answer that question. But before you say that, I do want to tell you, Ronnie, man, you just said something about you're not special. Ronnie, you are special, right? You are special, brother. And before I go out to some of the questions from the audience, I'm gonna go ahead and let the brother answer that question.
Yes, I wanted to say, I got locked up in 1975. Okay, when I went into the system was offering us everything that they say they wasn't getting. Okay, we had college programs in there, and we had auto mechanics, welding, all that stuff was offered to us. What happened with the system is the governors. When they switched governors, the system started tightening up. We built our own golf course in Muskegon. And what did John Engler do? He said, he flew over a helicopter and landed somewhere and said, this got to go. This got to go. And we spent our money for that. You know, and just like these guys, the Urban League, it's a lot of work to be done out here with these kids, okay? They go in the juvenile home in Grand Rapids. I go in the juvenile home with 4 other guys in Grand Rapids. We go in on Tuesdays. We don't play when we go in there. We give them hard knocks conversation. This stuff is real. When guys come out of the system, they want to get out here and put their hands on stuff and start doing positive things. But if they're not together, they can't do that. You have to be together when you come out of the system, be around guys that's going to pull you to the forefront and say, hey, look, we don't need you out here slipping.
Absolutely.
Because once you slip, it affects everybody in the stadium.
Yeah, for sure.
It affects us.
It does.
Becker, the chief of police, the mayor of Grand Rapids, Attorney General Nissa, they didn't all came here to see how programs work. They didn't been to our group clear and see how it works. We deal with a lot of CSCs, but guess what? Not one out of 5 or 6 years returned back to the system.
Good. Thank you. I'm going to transition over, and Rich, I'm going to ask you this question. Somebody in the audience asked, what West Michigan criminal justice organization do you recommend supporting, orgs for aiding folks in and out the system, if they're in it?
Run that by me again.
What organizations, criminal justice organizations, do like over here in West Michigan, in Grand Rapids area, do you recommend supporting? That help people.
Create it.
Yeah.
Please create that organization.
There is one. There is one not here in Grand Rapids, but there is one in Muskegon, Fresh Coast Alliance.
Yes,
and
Fresh
Nate
Coast
just left.
Alliance. Yeah.
But yeah, Fresh Coast Alliance. It's a reentry organization, reentry and recovery. They do a lot of wonderful stuff. Several juvenile lifers have actually gone to Fresh Coast Alliance. So big ups to, there goes Nate over there. Nate, big shout out to Nate and the Fresh Coast Alliance for the work that they do. Really appreciate it.
Can I tell me? I'm a part of a statewide organization. We cover West Michigan also, Safe and Just Michigan.
Of course,
and what
Safe
we
and Just
do
Michigan.
is,
Safe and Just Michigan.
hey, we getting people out of, as my man Ken Nixon always said, we getting people out of prison. And that's a wonderful feeling for a guy who spent 40 years in prison. At times it didn't look very, very good for me. And to come out here and to join the organizations that helping change policies and laws that affect everybody, all the people that I still love that I left behind, that's a wonderful feeling. So if you want to support an organization, and I know I'm a homer, but Safe and Just Michigan is that organization that you should support.
Yeah, and for full disclosure, I am on the board of directors of Safe and Just Michigan. I get to work at the campaign for the fair sentencing of youth. Like Safe and Just Michigan is our partners here in the state trying to abolish life without parole for children. So big ups to Safe and Just, to John and all the work, and Zach for this amazing work that you did with the videos. The next question is, Saulo, I'm gonna go with you with this one. What are a few examples of change you'd like to see in the juvenile detention process, being somebody who went through that process, the juvenile detention system,
Yeah, I think, I was never, my first interaction with the criminal justice system was going to prison for the rest of my life. So I think in regards to that, I think that there really needs to be reform in regards to programming for juveniles who are entering the system, right? Prison is a total institution, right? It's like the military, institutions like that who strip you of your identity, and what should happen is they rebuild you, right? And in that case, they would rebuild you through programming, things like that, to help you rehabilitate. That doesn't happen. So while they strip you, you're left to your peers, right? Or to yourself, right? I think that for a lot of us, and from the sounds of it, it seems that it wasn't until we fully matured, right, and we got to maybe in our 30s that we began real significant change, right? I think some of us may have been around other people who had been there for a while, who were able to help guide us, right, to make better decisions, to help make us aware of some of the things that needed to happen, for us to begin that change and to really critically examine ourselves, right? But I think without significant programming from the time that you go in to the time that you come home, I think that that's what needs to happen. And then I think that 2% or the 1% that you see will be abolished. You won't see that at all. And you'll see so much success with that. And again, and that's why, I wanted to take the time to commend everybody for the work that they did in helping themselves be rehabilitated, because I know, being in that system, right, I think you, Ross, had the opportunity to take advantage of so many opportunities while it was made available. And I know that with certain wardens and things like that at different facilities, and especially, with Calvin and the CPI program, which I was able to benefit from and become a part of before I came home. there's a lot of significant things happening now, but that wasn't the case for many years, right? And so I think that, while that momentum is happening, we need to take advantage of that and push hard for those reforms for juveniles who are entering the system, who need that support, who need those programs in order to be rehabilitated and to be successful when they eventually do come home.
Thank you. And I would like to add something to that. I think another thing on the front end of the juvenile justice system is that, if we're going to expose, first of all, kids should not be exposed to the adult system. But the reality is that is the system that we're working with now, right? So we have children who are experiencing, so if a child is arrested for a crime, in many cases, the police officers who, they're trying to do their job, of course, and trying to solve the crime. But what ends up happening is that you have a parent who comes, so the officer, they'll play on that. They say, okay, well, your son is being charged with this, or your daughter's being charged with this. And then usually what happens is the parent will go in there and say, hey, tell them what you know. Tell them what you did, right? Tell them what you did. And they do that thinking that, well, it wasn't my child who committed a crime. He was just there. He or she was just there. And so the kid ends up confessing, right? And then that's where like what Greg said, you know what I'm saying? He didn't pull the trigger. He didn't go there with the intention of taking nobody's life, you know what I'm saying? So he went and told him exactly what happened. But the moment he confessed to that crime, he now had just confessed to the crime, you know what I'm saying? So now what he thought was a confession that was helping the situation now became the very same thing that they used to convict him, you know what I'm saying? And so I think we have to strengthen laws, because there are laws in existence that say that officers should not question individuals without the presence of the parent there, you know what I'm saying? But I think what needs to happen is that the parent needs to be taken out of it, you know what I'm saying? And at least an attorney advocate, at the very minimum, an attorney advocate needs to come in there during that process, so then the attorney can give them a sound legal advice, you know what I'm saying? Opposed to a parent trying to get their kid home, not knowing that the moment the kid confesses to that crime, he's not gonna come home. He's gonna end up, with a life sentence. There was an instance one time where there was a 15-year-old, it was a case where it was a 15-year-old who was charged with a murder, and the prosecutor had offered a 15-year plea. You know what I'm saying? Say, you know what, he pleads guilty, we'll give him 15 years. Again, because of the parent, you know what I'm saying? The parent was like, no, not my child. You know what I'm saying? My child didn't do that. We're not taking no plea. We're going to trial. The kid goes to trial. He gets found guilty of first-degree murder. He ends up with a life without parole sentence, right? So we need to figure out how to, the parent has to, of course, the parent has a right to know what's going on, and they have a say-so on what's going on. But there has to be stricter laws, and not only stricter laws, not only just laws just to pass them, but actually enforce the laws to make sure that things like that don't happen. You know what I'm saying? We understand that a crime was committed. We understand that as a homicide detective or an officer, you're trying to get that solved. But there has to be some protections that are put in place, because no matter what, this is still a child. This is a parent who is dealing in feelings about the child and not believing that the child was the one who actually perpetrated the crime or had anything to do with it. So I think we need to tighten that up. And so moving forward, like Ronnie, where you're at now, what are some of your goals? I mean, you've achieved, you've gotten out, you and your wife are together, you guys are happy, you got a good job, you're making a difference in this society. What's moving forward? What other adventures you got? What other plans you got? What's going on with you, Ronnie?
I would like to see Michael Chappelle parole. I would like to see Stephen Hibbler parole. I would like to see Michael Jones parole. So I haven't done anything out here yet, and that's what motivates me. People pat me on the back. I'm like, what have I done?
He was in Washington just yesterday, and he's saying, what has he done?
No, but
I didn't think he was going to make it here because he was in Washington last night.
But it's so much more to do.
Yeah.
So if you start believing what people say about you, and they say a bunch of bad stuff about me too that I don't believe. So, but you can't live your life trying to live up to somebody else's expectation. My expectation is to be out here and to do the best I can every day and to enjoy myself. You know, I work hard, but I also play hard because I deserve to have that too in my life. I've been through a lot of stuff, and like I said, by the grace of God, I made it through. So you might see me out here jumping out of planes or, you know, trying to break into prisons so I can break somebody else out, you know? So.
No doubt, no doubt. And I'm gonna that same question, but we're gonna come this with Rich. Rich, you've worked with advocacy organizations. You've, you know, you're an entrepreneur. You're out here doing your thing. You're working. You know, what is Rich 5 years from now? What is Rich see himself doing?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you can help me out with that. No. So yeah, I've been home 7 years and started out in advocacy with the ACLU and some of the early pushes for raise the age legislation, which has led me to the space that I'm in now with being the director at Cure Violence. 5-year plan, law school in 2026, and thank you, I appreciate that.
That's right.
And similar to something that Ronnie just mentioned, I'm not breaking in them, but I want to break the back of them. I want to see all prison. I don't want to reform prison. I want it to be abolished.
No doubt. No doubt. Thank you. Ahmad, same question for you.
And he just said a mouthful. I'm just getting started. As long as it's juveniles, jails, and prisons, it's gonna be me out here mentoring, for sure. 5 years, 10 years from now, the prison's still open, I'm open. You know, understand that.
That's what's up.
But yeah, because I'm trying to abolish prisons, jails, juveniles. Period.
Thank you. Thank you. Saulo?
Yeah, I guess for myself, you know, I was recently working at a homeless shelter here in Grand Rapids, and you know, I decided to move from that because my heart is for you know, those in prison, coming out of prison, especially those coming out of prison. I think one thing I experienced while I was there at the shelter was guys getting paroled to the shelter. Sometimes, you know, we tried to work with the MDOC to have them communicate with us, and I was the director of intake services, so I was directly involved with some of that communication in deciding, you know, if that was a right fit, things, you know, for somebody coming home or what have you. And sometimes I would just drop them off and not say anything. And I would recognize them because they're wearing their khaki outfit or something like that, you know what I mean? Or they have some orange shorts that they brought home with them, or, you know, and for me, it was just sad, you know, and I tried to always connect with them because I know the importance of having support, right? I know how important that is for people to be successful. And, you know, and so for me, that's long term, that's what I see myself doing. You know, I don't know in what capacity, but I think in the short term, I want to eventually get my MBA and maybe start a nonprofit. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I think that for me, that's kind of where I want to work towards.
And you, brother?
Yeah. Well, me personally, I've been out 15 years, and you had made mention of how parents get hoodwinked with their child being in the system, and the police do this, do that. But from what I've been seeing in Grand Rapids for the last 15 years is that it's not enough of us on the streets, okay? And I done seen Urban League at their best. It was, some of them was in the building. Most people are in the building. And I drive past that building down there, they out the building. And to reach these kids and to be around their parents, you got to be out the building. Okay, you can't touch nobody sitting in the building trying to do something. Even when I go to Muskegon and West Coast, Nate and them, they out the building. Yeah, they in the building, but they out the building. You can't help nobody in the building. If you're gonna do any changing in any city, you got to be out the building. You can't always look professional sitting behind somebody's desk that's paying you $40,000, $50,000 for what you're doing and somebody else is doing. And they don't even know how to do the job. The juveniles, trust me, they need to be seen in the juvenile because that's where they come. And you got to have the right peoples there. The juvenile workers are babysitters. Okay? They are babysitters just like the Department of Correction officers. They are rough babysitters. And if we don't educate ourselves as we experience all this juvenile history stuff, we go into the juvenile, and what we do to the kids, we teach them what we've been through. We don't want y'all to go through this. We do this every Tuesday night. And I'm quite sure this is what Urban League do. But what about the after care? When they out the juvenile home, where do they go then? They go right back to their same old You feel what I'm saying? Because there's no aftercare. When I got out the system, it was an aftercare for me. My victim family member came, pulled up on me and said, hey, look, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this. And that's what I've been doing ever since. He passed and I'm still moving. I had to take a back seat to some stuff. But when I'm out here, I encourage, I motivate every program that needs to be encouraged. But when you bring that bull to me, I'm gonna call you out on it. Because people don't need to be fooled out here with money and material stuff. We need to get it right. Because our kids is trying to get it right. But if they see us doing stuff that they still doing, guess what? We ain't changing nothing. The fact is, you got some very intelligent guys up here. I ain't gonna put myself in that position because I can get ignorant sometimes. Because that's the type of person I am. I want us to do better when we come out of this system. Not sit behind somebody's desk collecting 501(c)(3) monies and stuff like that, grant monies. Okay, let's use that knowledge that we did 30, 40, 50 years and put it out here and do what's right. Because there's some right stuff out here for us to do. So my thing is, them guys that's sitting back there, guess what? They know what I'm doing. And guess what? If I see a parole board member or they come in my area, have you ever looked at this case? Have you ever looked at this case? It's time to put them names out there. That's all we got to do is put the names out there. Somebody gonna grab hold to them and listen and say, yeah, these guys, let's see how they doing in prison. He said this name here. And guess what? A lot of them guys is getting out. Some of the guys that may have friends in here, believe me, they're in the process of getting out probably right now. We can't see behind what's behind this wall. But I can guarantee you somebody's doing something to help them guys get out of prison. And that's that parole board. That's that governor's office. But stuff just don't happen because it happens because people make it happen. And that's what we up here for, to make things happen. And that's what I like doing, is get behind people that's gonna do something positive. But if you ain't doing nothing positive, you can believe I ain't behind you.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you for that. And I think, this is it, man. We didn't just get here. There was a lot of people on the inside that mentored each and every one of us. You know what I'm saying? There was an old head in there, man, that whispered in our ears and said, you know what, man, you're doing something wrong. Go in this direction. Hit that law library. Go get your GED. Go get a degree. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of good men and women in prison who made one simple mistake, man. They had a few seconds of a bad choice and ended up in a really, really, really bad situation. We cannot continue to buy in to what we see on the TVs. We cannot continue to buy in of all the bad, negative policy, the rhetoric that's put out there. We have, these are our neighbors. 90% of the people in prison come home one day. You know what I'm saying? How do you want them coming home? You want them coming home not fixed, or you want them to come home, to become taxpayers and just good people. There's a lot of good people in there, man, and we have to, something has to change, because obviously we haven't been doing something right? Here it is, we're in a state that thinks it's okay to put children in prison for the rest of their lives. We are the only country in the whole world that does that, and Michigan is on top of the list as being the worst, right? I think that we can all, I have nieces, I have nephews. I want a safe community, right? But I don't think that being tough on crime has to be done on backs of children, right? Like, we have to do better with children. We just have to, right? Because you never know when it's gonna be your child. There's a lot of people out here saying, not my kid, you know what I'm saying? They're so distant and so far away from the problems that put children there in the first place, they can never fathom that their child could be, oh no, not my kid. We go to church every Sunday, both parents have jobs, straight A student, you know what I'm saying? Trust me, I've been working with juvenile lifers for the last 33 years, 27 of them incarcerated, 6 of them out here. There's children who come from all over this state, you know what I'm saying? From children who are attached to parents who never thought that this could happen to their child, right? And it is with that in mind that we have to push our legislators here in the state of Michigan and around this country to once and for all abolish life without parole. I understand that there was maybe a time where there was maybe a little peak in crime that went up, and all of a sudden we all went into this, oh my God, super predators, you know what I'm saying? The very same people who coined the phrase super predator have now come back and say, hey, we were wrong, we had it wrong. There's a criminologist, it's very well documented, a criminologist who, hey, these kids, they were super predators. When the case Miller that abolished the mandatory aspect of life without parole children, one of those same criminologists actually filed an amicus brief and said, hey, I am one of the people who coined this phrase. I had it wrong. They should have stuck his ass in prison, right? Because of that, because what he said in the information that he put out there, over 2,000 children in the country were serving life without parole sentences. That's not right, man. You know what I'm saying? We as children, we want adults to protect us, man. We want, don't throw us away. You know what I'm saying? Like, we are redeemable. We are saved. This is an example, right? This is an example of kids who went in there and had life without parole, and they're out here doing something great, right? So don't buy into the rhetoric that you see on the news every day. Oh, these kids are bad. They're never going to change. That's BS, right? That's BS. And there's something that each and every one of us here in the state of Michigan and everywhere, we can do something about it, right? So real quickly, there's legislation here in Michigan pending. I've been working with legislators for the last few years, Safe and Just Michigan, the campaign, and a lot of organizations to get this abolished, right? So we have House Bill 4160 through 4164, and then we have Senate Bills 119 to 123 that would abolish life without parole. It's not a get out of jail free card. You have to go in front of the parole board and show them, based on your record and the things you're doing, that you have changed and that you're remorseful and that you can move on forward. You know what I'm saying? And then the parole board still has the option of either granting that parole or not, right? So we have to, we can't just come, this is cool, the gatherings are good, the videos are great, but we can't just leave here and act like, okay, you know what, I'm good, the advocates will take care of it. No, it's citizens like you that have to push, especially like over here on the west side, especially on the west side of the state, because a lot of stuff, I believe a lot of stuff that happens, I mean, every time you look up, there's a rally either in Lansing, down in Detroit, but you don't hear about a lot of this information reaching the citizens of West Michigan. All you hear is what you see on the news. You know what I'm saying? I'm here for one night, and I was watching the news earlier, and all I heard was just negative stuff. You know what I'm saying? That is not the case. That doesn't define West Michigan. That doesn't define Grand Rapids, right? No, but the people of Grand Rapids and the people of West Michigan, they have a voice in this government. They have a voice in how this state is ran just as much as anybody in Lansing, in Detroit, or anybody anywhere else, right? And so when you hear those conversations, those kind of side conversations about people who are in prison or juvenile lifers or something like that, you can now go back and say, you know what, that's not true, right? Because just the other day, I met some of the most amazing people in this state, in this city, that are doing some amazing work. And sure enough, they committed crimes, they paid severely for those crimes, and even after that, they are now coming out here, they're entrepreneurs, they're working with nonprofits, they're helping our community be safe, and I can go on and on and on. Whatever. So before we close, we had a couple questions. Are there any other questions that we can answer? How much more time we got, Cassie? How much more time we got? 5 minutes? Oh, I'm over. Okay, sure. All right, it's time to wrap it up. Any one or two questions? Any more questions? Anybody? Go ahead.
Just what, for the 22 folks that are still inside, what can you do to help them?
That is a great question. I mean, they're all from like different counties. I think the best thing, that we can do for those who contact prosecutor's office, and you can contact your prosecutor's office, you can contact your senator, your state representative, and say, you know what, I understand that children do, some children cause harm, but I don't believe that they deserve life without parole. You know what I'm saying? Like, because a lot of times me and Ronnie go to Lansing a lot and do a lot of advocacy work, and a lot of times some of the legislators that we talk to, I'm not hearing from my constituents. You know what I'm saying? I'm hearing from you guys coming up here, but my constituents are not saying anything about this. You know what I'm saying? Especially in like the smaller rural cities around the state. So I think that the best thing you can do is contact your legislator and say, hey, we support this legislation. CFSY, www.cfsy.org is an organization that I work for. It's a national organization fighting life without parole. Safe and Just Michigan, I have to say their website. safeandjustmichigan.org. Go there, there's a lot of great information. Those videos that you're seeing, there's plenty of videos on there that show the stories. And for those of you who belong to churches, different organizations, like if you want this message to come to your town, to your city, hey, reach out. I'll go anywhere in the state to get this message out. John?
Just a quick comment to my Calvin people in particular. Winnie Brinks, the Senate Majority Leader, is a Calvin grad. She's also your senator. And if you call her and talk to her about this, it might help. The Senate legislation got a hearing, but it has not moved forward through the committee process, and Winnie has the power to do that, and she's choosing not to use it.
Thank you for mentioning that. I actually reached out to Winnie Brinks' office last week about coming here, and for whatever reasons, scheduling reasons, she wasn't able to come. I also invited Joseph Fox, who is also a Republican representative from West Michigan, and because of scheduling reasons, he wasn't able to show up as well. But yes, Speaker Tate, Joe Tate, Speaker of the House. He is somebody who is, he sets the agenda. So he is somebody that we really, really are trying to lean on and say, hey, this is very important. Put this on the agenda and let's get this moving. In this election year, it's gonna be real tight to get it passed at the end of the year. We're hoping, I'm very optimistic that there's still a slight possibility that it can be done this year. And Michigan can become the 29th state to abolish that. Lorenzo?
Ronnie wanted to address.
Where, Ronnie?
Let me remember what it was. No, what you can do is, it's a misconception that in 2012, the United States Supreme Court said that life without parole, mandatory life without parole, was unconstitutional. They didn't say life without parole was unconstitutional. So it's a process that you've seen the videos of the statistics of everybody that came home and 194 has been released and so many has been resentenced. But that sentence is still on the table for young people who get in trouble. And we know if it's on the table, a judge is going to use that. So what you can do is you can contact your representatives and let them know that that sentence needs to be off the table completely. Just like the majority of America has already decided that that sentence should be off the table. Michigan, and we call ourselves progressive or enlightened people, and we still do that to our kids. So if you want to do something to help those 22, take that life without parole completely off the table and give them a sentence that fits who they are, their kids. They're going to change. They're going to realize that I made major problems. I made major bad decisions in my life, but they don't define me for the rest of my life. And if they don't buy into that, then they can change. They can become who they believe that they are. So Please help us end life without parole in the state of Michigan.
Thank you. And real quickly before, as we close tonight, I want to thank Calvin College for the wonderful, wonderful job that they're doing on the inside with the college program. I know I talked to, yes, please. I talked to many people who are in that program, many graduates of that program. It's an amazing college program at the MTU facility, providing a bachelor's degree, man. Them guys, man, like, you know, you got guys who are doing life sentences, man, that are in that program, man, and again, that is infusing hope in those guys, man. And so big ups to you guys, safe and just. Thank you all of you who came from all over the state. And again, this message, we can take this message, man, anywhere in the state, anywhere in this country, man. So if you want this message to come to your town, to your city, to your church, wherever it is, let us know, and we're there. So thank you very much. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you at the next event. Thanks to all my guys, too. Thank you all my guys.